Blessings and welcome everyone. Nico here, and in this video we're going to be talking all about how to find your rising sign and your moon sign, generate your own astrology chart for free, why it's important to know your rising and your moon sign, how to get the most accurate chart possible, and why that actually matters in the grander scheme of things. I'm also going to be answering some questions about my style, how I actually incorporate astrology into my work, into my readings, into my horoscopes, and how, of course, that relates to my tarot practice, my spiritual practice, and all of that. You do not need to pay somebody to build your chart for you if all you are doing is looking for your rising sign and your moon sign. And the best way that you can go about finding that information is to simply look up a free chart generator. A couple of my favorites right off the bat, if you are wanting to do this on your computer, cafeastrology.com is fantastic. You can create your own birth chart for free, and then you can have a look, see what is going on there. They do label a lot. They will label your ascendant or your rising sign. Technically, those are two different terms. They are used interchangeably. The rising sign is basically where your ascendant is. Your ascendant is the mathematic point that actually is the beginning of your rising sign, if that makes sense. The nice thing about Cafe Astrology as well is that they do also go pretty deep into looking at different aspects. I do not recommend profiling yourself with any kind of chart generator. I do not recommend depending on interpretations that are given to you through a computerized chart generator in any way, shape, or form, because that is highly limiting. That's going into more of an exoteric, fundamentalist, hard style philosophy with astrology, which I am very much against, but I do think that it can be very helpful when you want to find out your rising and your moon. If you are looking for a phone app instead of your computer, and you would like something that you could just kind of have on hand every once in a while, see where the planets are, what's moving around, I recommend Time Passages. It's available on both Android and on iPhone, and so that is also something that you can do instead. They do have extras that you can pay for, but getting your own chart for free is already available on that app as well. When you are going about building your chart, a couple of things you want to keep in mind. There's been a lot of misinformation about what you can wing and what you can't wing when it comes to building your chart. And I think a lot of that just has to do with the fact that, this community has suffered a bit of the fad craze effect, especially in the last 4 to 5 years. And so a lot of very green people and a lot of people just looking to make money from home, have kind of got really popular. They're good at social media, but they're not good at tarot. They're good at social media, but they're not good at astrology. Kind of BS their way to the top. And they have no answers for why it's important to take care of this in a much more deliberate and delicate way. You want to know your time of birth, for instance, as precisely as you possibly can. You really cannot wing this when it comes to finding your rising sign. You also need to be able to put your exact place of birth. You cannot wing that. I mean, you can to a certain degree if you are staying within the same time zone and latitude, but that's about it. The reason you want to have your exact time of birth, or as I recommend to people, maybe give or take a half hour, is because the position of your ascendant is going to change roughly every hour, which means that a person born at 2 p.m. is going to have a different rising sign than somebody who was born at noon. And you really do not want to be working with a window that big, because if you think you're a Cancer rising, and then all of a sudden it turns out you are not, and you're a Gemini rising, your whole chart layout is different, right? Where different houses are, your money house, your love house, your health house, your family house, all of those placements have changed. And so we can't take too casual an approach. Now, if you're only off by maybe 5-10 minutes, like I said, give or take a half hour either direction, then you're totally fine. It doesn't change that frequently. But you want to make sure you can get that there. All right. It's like when I do readings for my clients and somebody says, I was born, sometime between 2:15 and 2:45. We can work with that. You put 2:30 in and you're going to be accurate no matter what. Somebody says I was born between 2:15 and 5:15, that we don't want to work with. Now, the unfortunate truth is that when it came to printing out time of birth on birth certificates, that did not become more universal until we got to the mid-70s. And so if you were born before 1976, it's not guaranteed that you're going to have your birth time printed on your birth certificate. And it could even be more the case, depending on what country or what state you were in, that did or did not occur. So you are going to want to do your research as best you can. And you might have to call some people, might have to, check in with your parents or whoever was there. Again, just get it within a half-hour approximation. It doesn't have to be right down to the millisecond. It doesn't even have to be right down to the minute. Latitude determines a lot about the sizes of different houses in your chart. Now, if you are using an equal sign system, that might be different for you. But for the vast majority of astrologers, the latitude does shrink or expand the sizes of certain houses in a person's chart. So you want to make sure that you are getting the city you were born in, or at least a city that was actually close enough to have not changed time zones and is not jumping latitudes north or south. And so if you were born in a small town outside of London, and you just say London because that's what you can find on the chart generator, perfectly fine. If you were born outside of Tampa in Florida, you're going to have a very different chart makeup than somebody who was born outside of Toronto, Ontario, okay? You do not want to be winging this part of it. When you have the information you are looking for, then you go to your free chart generator, and again, it could be cafeastrology.com, or you can use the Time Passages app. And no, I am not being sponsored. I'm just helping these guys out, I guess, out of the goodness of my own heart. And you are going to plug that information in where necessary. You do not necessarily need to worry about things like daylight savings time. All the chart generators have that taken into consideration, at least at this point in time, if they are staying up to date. Now, if you're looking at a website that hasn't gone through an update since 2004, might want to, change a few things around or maybe go look at something else, but you are going to be able to have that taken into consideration. When your chart is built, you can, of course, look for your moon by finding the crescent moon symbol, or if it is listed in type, then you will find that as well, and that will be an easy find. And for your ascendant or your rising sign, you're just going to be looking at the left-hand bar of the cross that is going through the chart, because our chart is actually broken into fourths, into quadrants, and the left hand is going to show you what your rising sign or your ascendant is. For instance, mine is at 21 degrees Libra. So the left hand of my chart, that quadrant starts in Libra, which makes me a Libra rising. Now, the reason we have people look at their rising sign is because when it comes to looking at many different systems of astrology, the rising sign is going to show you more personally what is going on in your chart and how all of the houses in your personal chart start. In your chart, your first house starts on the ascendant. That is the first house cusp. And then all of the other houses, 2 through 12, follow. When you're looking at your sun sign, you can still get an accurate estimate, but things become at that point a lot more general and a lot less personal. And that's basically where you set the firmest foundation. So you can have your sun, your rising, and your moon right then and there. And then from there, I take a much more multi-dimensional approach to the way I look at everything. Because my style of astrology and my spiritual practice in general, even my approach to tarot, is much more esoteric than it is exoteric. I don't necessarily have a style of astrology that I favor because, well, I approach my spiritual practice like a martial artist, or like a mixed martial artist, I guess you could say. A lot of my interpretations for certain planets are definitely focused on not only my own experience working with those planets in my own spiritual practice in ceremony, again, studying Hermetic science and Eastern mysticism and nature-based pagan religions, but also where those origins for those planets and understandings of those planets have come from. For instance, yes, we understand here in the West that Mercury is an air elemental planet, but if you go over to Japan, you're going to find that, oh, Mercury is associated with water, or Jupiter is associated with wood, or Venus is metal. And I like to have all of those understandings, all of those different gradients, so I can do a reading that's in color as opposed to black and white. And so that might be something to think about as well as you continue through your astrology journey. Now, if you are just asking that question of me because you want to know and you're a student of astrology yourself, there you have your answer. If you're not a student of astrology, but you maybe just wanted to know about me and my style and my practice and who I am, there you go. Of course, if you're not interested in becoming an astrologer or using it in your spiritual practice and you're just there for a reading, that might have been a lot to kind of have thrown at you all at once. But, you know, there are a lot of different types of people who come to my channel, and my channel is designed to be one that mixes the service with education and advancement as well, as opposed to just doing the service and certainly, for God's sake, not just being entertaining. When it comes to connecting astrology to tarot, this used to be a topic of controversy, but I think the controversy is over. I remember when I was first actually doing this, and yes, I was one of the OG original, maybe 20 readers on YouTube back in 2013. The topic at that time, there was this sort of tarot has nothing to do with astrology, tarot has nothing to do with horoscopes, you can't mix, you can't mix, you can't mix. But I think a lot of people have evolved out of that at this point in time. The way tarot helps in these kinds of understandings or in these kinds of readings is that when a reader, okay, so this actually depends on the skill of the reader, right? We're still staying in the realm of a balance, a holistic balance of esoteric and exoteric. That reader, if they're doing their job, is going to take some serious time to bless and dedicate their cards to looking at a specific population. For instance, the reason I do not shuffle on camera, or you don't see me doing anything like that, or certainly not talking while I am charging or blessing my cards, is because I am attuning to not only the sign population and my guides, but I'm actually putting that energy and that intention into my cards to see what is going on. I often wonder about some of these readers who are just kind of like, oh yeah, and then my boyfriend, da 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 da, and it's just like, okay. Anyway, sorry. Come back to this. The way a reader is going to charge and, empower and bless their work, of course, is going to be unique to them. Everyone, if they are truly on the path, is going to develop and perfect a way for themselves that works, that can be repeated, and then it becomes a form. It becomes a stance. It becomes something that they utilize as a technique over and over again, until they find something, that they evolve into. But for me, I make it very, very clear off camera, in the zone, right, at my altar. I call in and forth all of my divine aspects to unify in this now moment, and I call forth the divine crystalline diamond light of source to purify, clear, and dissolve any and all programs, thoughts, energies, or intentions that ever registered upon these cards. And I call forth that these cards now present and show the truths that must be shared with this sign population. Let's say I was saying it for Virgos. For the Virgo people, sun, moon, and rising, spare no vital truths, clear and dissolve any and all interference, pressures, wishes, biases, or contaminations of all kinds. Present the complete and total truths that must be revealed right now for this time period, whether it's a week or a month, in the highest interest of all concerned. I surrender this to Source, my higher self, my multidimensional I Am presence, and my Oversoul, Godhead. Take over. And then I lay out the cards after I shuffle it about 12 times. That is how I go about doing it. I don't know how some of these people go about blessing and charging their work, But when you do it that way, you are able to attune to an entire population of a certain sun sign or a certain rising sign. Yes, we have left the realm of the outer court, right, exoteric, hard science for the masses kind of way of doing a practice, but that's not what this stuff was ever meant for. And so when a person is charging and blessing their cards in that way, and they are actually working with purpose and intent and a spiritual acuity that allows for that information to come forth, it will. And so, I mean, I know there are some people that are more comfortable with tarot, or they're less comfortable with tarot. They prefer oracle, or they don't like cards at all and they prefer runes, or they don't think that they should mix with astrology. That is up to them and their personal path. But I figured, you know what, let's just put it out there for anyone who is curious and wanted to know. Just some food for thought, and just throwing it all out there like a fire hose the way I do, so that you can collect what resonates, what's important, what needs to stick, and, you know, let that be what you work with. Because you know me, that's what happens when I get up on this seat and the lights on. So I hope you all found this helpful. I hope you found this illuminating and maybe give you some clarity on how some of these arts work and how some of these arts can work when they are done well and done properly. And if you are interested in learning more about astrology from me, I actually have an astrology crash course series available on my Patreon. It's available for supporters pledging $1 a month or more, and there's hours and hours and hours of content for you to be able to learn all kinds of astrology there. I even go into discussions about looking at past lives, as well as identifying things like careers you might do very well in, and so you might want to look at that. I'll have a link in the down bar below. Don't forget, you have monthly tarot here on my channel. I'm going to be working on monthly astrology here in a hot minute, because at the time of recording this video, we are approaching September, and I'm going to be doing interplanet astrology for each sign. And if you're interested in daily content, of course, I've got that here for everybody. And weekly bonus scopes for those who are Patreon supporters or the YouTube membership supporters. And so if you're interested in any of that, check it out. I've got a lot of content on this channel. Y'all take care, and I will see you all again very soon. And if you ever want to get a session with me, you can go on ahead to my website. It's integrativemysticism.com.